season. We can't wait to come see you next. Georgia, Alabama. Sports Live will be your go-to for all your favorite high school and collegiate games this fall. From the Carver Tigers to the Columbus Blue Devils, the Harris County Tigers and Northside Patriots, the Glenwood Gators and Calvary Christian Knights, the Pacelli Vikings and Brookstone Cougars, to the Smith Station Panthers and Russell County Warriors, from CVCC Pirates basketball and baseball and every tournament from here to Macon. We are the #1 destination for anything happening in East Alabama and West Central Georgia. Be sure to like and follow us on YouTube and Facebook, and stay tuned for even more amazing ways we will be bringing Georgia, Alabama Sports Live to you this upcoming season. We can't wait to come see you next. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Georgia Alabama Sports Live Show, live from the Georgia Alabama Sports Live studios. I'm Thrift Barringer, alongside my partner in crime, Richie Rich Holdridge. Richard, how are you, man?
I'm doing great, Thrift. I can't believe that week one of high school football is in the books. We've had so many exciting matchups, and I can't wait for week two.
I cannot wait for week two either, Richard. And we are presented by Pepsi. As you see, we got Pepsi right here in front of us. I was drinking a lot of Pepsis on Friday night to quench my thirst when I was calling the Shaw Northside game. And then also thank you to Glenn Smith Chevrolet and GMC for all your car buying experience. You want to get the best one possible, you go up to Opelika, go to Glenn Smith Chevrolet and GMC, say Thrifter Richard sent you, and I promise you're going to be leaving saying, or what they say, excuse me, I'm about to butcher the whole phrase, but what they say is,
get ready to smile.
All right, week one, Richard. For one, I want to start with this. Great job by our producers, Brandon Schwabel and Bain Robertson. They were at Connect with me for Shaw Northside. Thank you to Chris Gates, who went all the way to Manchester with Rick Beach, and that was an incredible game. We'll talk about that in just a moment. And then, of course, to Toygar Isla, who was with you at Calvary. I want to also thank some of the color guys that were part of the broadcast. Mike Peacock, who was longtime sports information director at Columbus State, longtime coach, who's coached at many different schools, and broadcaster, big part of our team. Glad that he was on the call with me at Shaw Northside. And then Tyler Crowder is now going to be part of Georgia Alabama Sports Live when he can. And he was your color guy at Calvary on Friday against Terrell.
Yeah, did an outstanding job. I thought we had great chemistry. It was a great broadcast. It got to be up in that brand new press box at Calvary. And we just appreciate just the atmosphere and the hospitality for Calvary just to let us broadcast the game.
And you mentioned Calvary because high school game day was off the chain.
Oh, it was.
Off the charts. Just incredible atmosphere set. And now I hope every game day will be like this. We had the band there. Great job to Nathan Berryhill, the band director. I just love how they set the tone and bringing in and taking us out from breaks. They were fantastic. Thank you to some of the high school students that are able to show up. And, of course, our guests, which included head of school Jonathan Norton and his head girls basketball coach, head baseball coach and athletic director Steve Smith. He kind of is the orchestrator with us for everything that we did at Calvary on Friday night. And then thank you to DJ Jones, who's going to be our headgear picker every game day. So we're so glad we had DJ in the building. And then also thank you to Jax Dyer and Eliza Chestnut, two former Calvary alumni who won state championships in baseball and football, doing great things with their career and in college, and thankful that they were there to be a part of high school game day. Just an incredible day of sports, and specifically football, as we know how big that is in our area. And, man, I was just blown away by high school game day, the coverage, the support, the turnout from the fans and the band. And then all 3 of our games were just, I had to pinch myself. Like, man, this is like ESPN Plus. You get to go pick from any one of the 3 games to watch. Gerald Bedgood, he was saying he had them on 3 different screens.
That's nice.
That is incredible,
Yes.
Richard.
What an incredible night. I mean, you had 3 amazing games on Georgia Alabama Sports Live. First time that we've ever done a triple header. And when you're talking about like just the level of talent that we have in this city, that we have all just come together because we want to give these student athletes the coverage. And I was just blessed that I was a part of it. What a historic night.
A very historic night. And numbers were incredible. All 3 videos tallied to about 15,000, close to 20,000 views. Again, having to pinch myself thinking about where we started and now where we're going. Just a great night for high school football and a great night on Georgia Alabama Sports Live. And we got another big one coming up this weekend. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the show. But the triple header that we did do, and I just want to throw this out there, we had some technical difficulties, internet problems at Connect. We rectified it. We think we have the long-term solution when we go there again. So for those who did tune into that game and, the first half was kind of lagging, we got it fixed midway through the 3rd quarter. We appreciate you sticking through that game, and I appreciate your support and understanding of kind of what we were going through with the internet situation there. But Shaw, I like what I saw from Aaron Grant, the quarterback, Richard. He did a great job, especially in that first half, keeping Shaw in the game. He threw a dime almost on his back shoulder throw. The receiver who caught it, and you can see some in the highlights right here, the receiver who caught it was an over-the-shoulder catch. Yes. It kept the game close, 13-6 at halftime. Caden Clay played 1 drive in that first half. The second drive, Brent Wilkinson, who was a backup quarterback, came in. He threw a 50-yard slant pass that went to the house for 6. Close game, but second half dominated by Northside. The offensive and defensive line got a bunch of push that allowed the running backs of Jay Jackson and Kingston Rivers, I think the best running back tandem that we have in our area. I don't care what school, what classification, those 2 guys, they may be all sick. Kingston Rivers returned punts, returned kicks, came out of the backfield, played slot receiver, and also was one of the lead running backs. Jonathan Van Rivers' son, I told him after the game, he's just different.
Yeah.
They won it 33-12, and Northside in the second half just implemented their will, and they dominated both lines of scrimmage. Aaron Grant, there's still a lot of positivity coming from Shaw, and I feel like they still have everything in front of them. And this was a good litmus test against, I think, one of the best teams, and you'll see in our rankings in just a moment. But really, great job by Northside. Coach Orpeza getting a big win, 33-12, as they got a bye, and then they take on another great team coming up in 2 weeks. And then they got Carver as well coming up in about a month. So, Richard, be on the lookout for that. But you are actually at Calvary and Terrell, which was the high school game day location. Back and forth game, it looked like, Richard. I know you had a lot of fun being on the call for that one.
Yeah, Calvary really shown that they could play with these public schools and making the GIAA debut. It was 6-3 going into the 4th quarter. Calvary's defense was outstanding. I mean, there was one play where the quarterback for Terrell threw a dime in the back of the end zone on a 3rd and goal. It was like 16-yard line. It was a 3rd and goal. And that Jalen Perry, he had over 150 receiving yards, and he also had a pick 6 to ice it. But it was 6-3. I was very impressed with Nate Osborne. He can throw the football. Luke Scoggins made some incredible catches. I thought that Calvary held its own and had a chance to win it with about a minute to go, and they got the football back. And really, it was Calvary's defense that kept Calvary in that game.
Yeah, and I was going to say, Richard, and I think you can add on to this too. From the Northside Shaw perspective, Aaron Grant had to run for his life a little bit in that second half. The defense wore down for being on the field too much. I felt the same thing from Calvary, but they didn't break. They only gave up 6 points. Remember that last touchdown, as you may mention, was a pick 6. One of the things, though, I did from watching the game, by the way, great call from you and Tyler, especially that pick 6, and which I hated was against Calvary. Yeah. But Nate Osborne seemed like he had to run for his life. And obviously, I know Coach Brunson and that Calvary coaching staff, they really want to make sure they shore up that offensive line and giving Nate Osborne time because it's only going to get harder as they continue on through the GIAA. But I thought he held his composure well for someone that had to run for his life and got hit a lot. And then right before that pick six, he was about 5 yards short of a touchdown and Calvary winning that game. If he had a little bit more muster on it, it would have been a touchdown. I know you saw that. Yeah. You made a great job. Just missed him. But I was impressed from Nate, even though he had to overcome a lot.
Yeah, I also was impressed with Caden Avery on the defense. I mean,
he was dominant, wasn't he?
Dominant. First of all, that clearly was a fumble. Right before the half, Terrell County, they were up 6-3. They were trying to get some more points. Calvary would have got the ball back with great field position with maybe a minute and all three of their timeouts. Maybe they could have scored because they got the ball to start the second half. I thought that Calvary had some opportunities, but you talk about the line play. I mean, you know that Calvary has the skill players. I know that Coach Brunson is trying to work on just improving the line, trying to get more physical. They went into the offseason into the weight room because, when you're taking on these public schools and you're taking on GIAA schools, line play is a huge factor when it comes to these games.
What also, too, Richard, I took away from the game is those balls. There was one, you and Tyler did such a good job. It was a muff punt that everybody wanted and thought the Calvary was going to hop on it. And then there were times where there was a bad punt for Terrell, and Calvary hits it, and Terrell ends up getting the football back. A lot of breaks that went Terrell County's way that didn't go, and that happens in football. But there were at least 8 to 10 times that I felt like if Calvary gets a break right there, who knows what the score would have been.
I actually was very impressed with Calvary's GIAA debut. They've held their own. I'm very impressed with Nate Osborne. He can throw the football, and like Luke Zivak last year, Calvary is not afraid to throw the football, and they just have playmakers on the outside. I mean, Terrell knew not to kick it to Luke Scoggins when they went back into punt formation. And Luke Scoggins had a great game, and I was impressed. And they'll go play Stratford Academy next week, and so I think that Calvary is going to be fine in the GIAA.
Stratford, pretty good themselves, and we'll talk about how they got a win in just a moment. But the last game of the tripleheader was Harris County Manchester. And when talking with Rick Beach, it was a slugfest. Talking with Chris, too, it was a battle of defensive struggle. It was. And then also both teams replacing quarterbacks, both teams having, new weapons on the offensive side of the football. That's going to take time. But the bend don't break mentality I saw from the defense, it was 0-0 at halftime. And then in that second half, specifically that fourth quarter, Harris County does what Harris County does. And Tommy Watson team, which is dominate the line of scrimmage, run and pound the football, Trotter Teasy not making many mistakes, and they got a big win on the road against a team that made it to the state championship last year, winning 16-8. I think this is a big-time win, obviously against a rival you haven't faced in 19 years. But the fact that their defense held Manchester to only 8 points, I think that this team, eventually the offense will catch up to the defense. But I like what Coach D. Rock Brooks, he's a D coordinator over there. He would call it a lights-out game, and they dominated, especially that D line. They were just wreaking havoc all over the field. And the future's bright for Harris County, especially, like you said, they didn't open up the entire playbook in week one and still able to get a win. That's impressive.
And one thing about this win, people don't realize how good Manchester is. I know that they're a single-A team. They went to the state championship, but they also have the #1 defensive tackle in the nation, Justice Terry. Harris County, they did lose a lot of players from last year's team, to include Matei Yeomans, Levi Watson, Miguel Sevilla. They still got Rian Ogletree. They still got Bishop Adams on the defense. Great win for the county. I know going up to Manchester, it was an emotional win, and I know that Manchester fans not happy because they thought they won this game. I thought the Manchester was about to win the game. They were up 8-3. Harris County gets a touchdown to put them up 9-8, and that turnover by Manchester was backbreaking, and that was the thing that iced the game for Harris County.
Yep. So great win for Harris County. I thought they would struggle maybe early on, especially with the tough schedule, but going to Manchester, getting that win, builds momentum against another rival coming up this week in Trigg County, and then Carver 2 weeks from now. So it doesn't get any easier for the Harris County Tigers. We'll go through these scores quickly as Chris will throw them up on the screen. You got Terrell County beating Calvary, as we may mention, 12-3. Carver takes care of business against Whitewater, 20-13, in a very highly contested game. Was impressed with Carver. They made the necessary plays to win. Again, Coach Coffey, a lot of these schools, they're not opening up the entire playbook and trying to throw the kitchen sink in week one. They don't want to give that much film out to future opponents, but big win for them, 20-13. Richard, some other schools around the area, including a team that got a big-time win.
Oh, wow. Kendrick ends up in the debut of Coach Emmanuel Brown's debut, ends up defeating the Walker School 38-0.
Wow.
And that was just an impressive win. They had a running back that he had an incredible game, 3 touchdowns. I'm trying to get his name here. Yeah, Tamir Jones with 106 yards rushing. Tamir Jones.
Yep.
Yeah, you probably know him. That's why you 106 yards rushing and 3 touchdowns. What a great win. They take on Best Academy. I think that's a winnable game next week. And then they will host Crawford County. They could be going into that Crawford County game on April 29th. August 29th, 2-0.
And what if they win that and they're 3-0?
And they win that, they're 3-0.
I'm telling you right now, if they win 4 or 5 games this year, it is going to be hard for me not to vote Coach of the Year to Emmanuel Brown.
Yeah, no question.
It's called Coach Mayo, but big-time win for Kendrick. Looking at some of the other scores that, Richard, that we have, Hardaway lost in a battle against Jackson, 24-14. Right. Again, I'm telling you, Coach McKenzie's team is going to be improved. Brookstone goes to Tatnall and wins that 26-15. I'm going to Tatnall, a team that made a decent run last year in the GIAA. They're always a great team out of Macon. Going to Tatnall, getting a big win. Rance Gillespie, this is, I feel like, could be his year. He comes home with the hardware. But on the flip side, their rival, though, didn't have a great Friday 2 days ago.
Yeah, it was a close game against Stratford, but Pacelli, they fell to Stratford 27-13. This was a rematch of the 2022 state championship game. We know how good Stratford is, but Pacelli, they did lose some players from that team last year, like A.Z. Justy, and they lost their quarterback, Brown. But they're trying to just build a culture there and just continue building just great football that Coach Dwight Jones is just implemented in this Pacelli system. They were just playing a really tough team week one.
Flint River, we had to shout them out. Joe Howard,
of course.
They beat Gatewood 19-14. Troup County whooped up on Villa Rica 39-6, and then Mount Zion blanked Chattahoochee County 34-0. Last thing before we go to break, I did want to say Northside also played pretty much the entire game in the second half without their starting quarterback, Caden Clay. I really was impressed for a backup quarterback in Wilkinson to come in, lead the offense down the field and scoring touchdowns. But like I said, Jay Jackson, Kingston Rivers, those guys are different. We're going to take a break. When we come back, one more score.
One more score.
Richard, go ahead. I'll let you do that.
No, okay. Miller County.
I don't know if Coach Peters wants us to talk about it too much.
But Coach Rob Peters is making his coaching debut, took over for the longtime coach, Phil Marino. The Columbus Blue Devils did fall to Miller County on the road 38-9. But, Miller County out of Colquitt, we know that they got some great football down in Colquitt.
Yeah.
So.
And by the way, if you are like, y'all don't talk Alabama, I thought it's Georgia Alabama Sports Live. Alabama hasn't played yet.
It's week one next week.
Yeah, it's week one this coming up Friday. We're going to take a break. When we come back, guess what? We're dropping them again. It's the high school football ratings poll. Time to ruffle some feathers. We got a few changes. You're going to like it on Georgia Alabama Sports Live.
Hey, grab me one too.
Welcome back to the Georgia Alabama Sports Live Show. Richard Holdridge, Thrift Behringer here from the GAS Live studio. And we just got done reviewing what happened last week. Now we're going to have our ratings poll. But first, just a second, we got to talk about what we got going on this week on Georgia Alabama Sports Live. So tomorrow we got as you saw tonight, you had the Kudzu Sports Show with Rick Beats. Great job by him. And then we have this show tomorrow we have the Calvary Coaches Show and the Glenwood Coaches Show live from Mike and Ed's, but Calvary is virtual. You'll be talking with Coach Brunson and an assistant coach. That's going to be fun. So Calvary will be first, Glenwood will be second. Tuesday, we got softball. Tatnall Square Academy taking on Calvary at 5:30. It's a doubleheader, 3:30 and 5:30. We'll be there for the second game at 5:30. Potentially, we're looking at softball Sumter at Shaw at 5:30. Me and Richard will be on the call for either one of those games. And then we got the Harris County show that's going on with Rick Beach on Tuesday. Wednesday, we got volleyball. Toy Guard Chris will be there for Kendrick at Hardaway at 6 p.m. It will be at Hardaway. Muscogee County Coaches Show that me and Richard will do. We'll have on some, probably maybe Coach Orpeza, Manuel Brown. Just check it out, and I will surprise you. And we'll have some other coaches for other sports too. And then dropping a new show this week. It's called Unsolicited Hot Take. We're going to use this show as a platform to give out hot takes about college football, about the Atlanta Braves, about the Falcons, NFL, NBA. It is where we don't cover on Georgia Alabama Sports Live. This is mainly local, professional, smaller colleges like UAB, Georgia State. Unsolicited Hot Take will be all of them. Now, I will say on the Georgia Alabama Sports Live show, we will still hit Auburn, Georgia, and Alabama. We'll hit some Falcons, but that's what Unsolicited Hot Take is going to be for. So when you want to hear Richard Holger saying Nick Saban and Alabama are going to go 6-6, you want to hear me say why Hugh Freeze may not last through year 2, that's where you're going to get it on Georgia Alabama Sports Live, Unsolicited Hot Take. On Thursday, we got a triple header of volleyball.
Oh.
We got Columbus at Pacelli, Central at Harris County, and then Houston County Glenwood and Northside Glenwood. You'll be there for that. Rick Beach will be there for Central out of Phoenix City, Harris County, and I will be there for Columbus Pacelli. So busy night, Thursday night, and then Friday. Of course, a triple header, which we'll talk about in next segment. But there's 3 football games, and one of them is the Heritage Bowl. We'll talk about the other 2 coming up after we do our ratings poll. So that is what's happening on Georgia Alabama Sports Live, your place for all things live and local. Richard, the ratings. We'll start at number 10. You were there for this one.
Right.
I thought, again, there were some positives, obviously some things that they're going to have to improve on. Didn't want to really kick them out of the ratings yet because I still feel like they have everything in front of them. That was a public school, but Calvary comes in at number 10.
Yeah, and that's rightfully so. They should be at number 10 because I was very impressed with how Calvary was able to hang with a public school in Terrell County. They got some playmakers. They are a very good team as well. Calvary, got to just cut down on the penalties. There were some breaks that went Terrell's way that Calvary could have easily won that football game.
Yeah, very easily. Number 9, Pacelli. Didn't want to drop them out again because I think Stratford is a team that played in the state championship 2 years ago. They're a team that's probably going to be one of the best teams in the GIAA this year. So I don't want to throw Pacelli out because remember last year they got smacked around by Glenwood and then went on an 8-game winning streak and moved up all the way to number 1 again. So I'm not ready to say, hey, I'm done with you, Pacelli. They did drop a spot. They come in at number 9. They have a big game coming up in 2 weeks against FPD. They're on the road this week. Pacelli needs to get a win here and rectify some of the mistakes they made against that Stratford team. This young, some mental errors that they think they'll get better at as the season goes on. Number 8, though, is Kendrick. And Richard, that 38-0, unbelievable.
Absolutely. Unbelievable game by Kendrick and the debut of Coach Emmanuel Brown. And I think that he is just establishing a culture that, Kendrick only won 3 games last year, but they continue improving. They go from 1 win to 3 wins. And this year, they get a win over Best Academy, which they play this week. They're hosting Crawford County at Kinnett Stadium on August the 29th, which we should be there, hopefully. I'm not trying to spoil anything, but I think that because Thursday night games, that's one of the Thursday night games. I think that Kendrick is going to be put on display, and people are going to see how improved this Kendrick team is. And I know they lost a lot of players from last year's team.
But being at number 8?
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
Well, they deserve to be in our rankings because you beat the Walker School 38-0.
Yeah, so we're putting them at number 8. Number 7, the Gators. They didn't play this past week, we did kind of switch them and Spencer. Spencer did win. And the more we talked about it, we do feel like Spencer has a better chance in 2A of Georgia than Glenwood does at 3A. Just because Glenwood, this is a new year, I'm not ready to say that they can win it all yet. But, I mean, again, that's a coin flip how you want to do those two. So Glenwood at number 7, and then Spencer, they didn't have to play and got a forfeit win because Dooley County had players that contracted COVID. So now Coach Kegler's team is 1-0 as they head into the Heritage Bowl this upcoming Friday. Any thoughts on both those teams? As Glenwood also takes on Valley for their first game. Glenwood Valley. It's kind of weird saying it, Richard.
It is. Now that Glenwood is in the AHSAA, they're going to be taking on public schools. I mean, we know about Valley. I mean, I've seen them a couple of times. They used to be in Russell County's region. And you look at just the landscape of these football teams. You know, Valley's got passionate fans. Glenwood's got passionate fans. I think talking to some of the student body and some of the coaches, they're excited about being in the AHSAA. I know that the multiple runs of championships that they won in the AISA, I think it's going to be a little bit harder because you have a lot more schools in the AHSAA at the 3A level. But I think that they are optimistic and they're excited that they get to play, local rivals like Smith Station, Central, and other sports down the road. They don't have to travel more than 3 hours. You can go up the road and play a Lynette or play a Lochapoka or go down and play a Russell County. I think that, and go across the river and play Northside like Glenwood's going to play Northside in volleyball this week.
Number 5, Harris County, big win against Manchester. Didn't want to put them up above the other 4 teams because I think all 4 of those teams have the best chance out of any teams here that can win it all. But Harris County comes in at number 5, big win against their rival Manchester. First time since 2006 to go to Manchester and win that one 16-8 in a slugfest. Very impressive for Coach Tommy Watson and his staff. Number 4, though, the Brookstone Cougars. They take care of business at Tatnall Square. And I think Brookstone is probably, if not number 1, around 1, 2, or 3 as one of the top teams in GIAA 4A, Richard.
Yeah, I was very impressed. Jakeith Tolbert ended up getting a touchdown. And what Coach Rance Gillespie has, it doesn't matter who is the quarterback. This Brookstone team is loaded. And I think that Brookstone has got to be one of the favorites in the GIAA in Class 4. When you talk about the Brookstones, the First Presbyterian Day, of course, Pacelli's got to be right there. A big win, and they got a huge home game next week taking on Valwood, which is the defending 3A champions in the GIAA. Max Strawn Stadium is going to be lit, and Brookstone, they're just going to be welcoming all their Brookstone fans and having a huge home game next Friday night.
Number 3, the Northside Patriots. I told you I was high on them, Richard. 33. I think they're going to put over 30 points a game. I think they're going to be the most dynamic offense we have here, aside from Central. I think scoring is going to come easy for them. They have too many playmakers. The Trent Cash, one of the wide receivers, on top of Kingston Rivers and Jay Jackson. These guys, and then the offensive line, Luke Norsworthy just pushing people out the way and defensively making stops when they need to. Coach Orpeza and Caden Clay didn't play majority of the game. Northside comes in at number 3. They get a much-needed bye, and they got a hard schedule moving forward. But they are going to eventually take on the number 2 team, who's going to face the number 6 team this Friday. Carver beats Whitewater 20-13. What'd you learn from Carver? And they still say his number 2 is one of the favorites to win it all in 2A.
Well, I'm very impressed with the progression of junior quarterback Matthew Mungden, and they are loaded at receiver. Braylon Jakes had over 100 yards. You also have Tristan Givens, and you also have Kobe Caslin. They've got some playmakers, and their defense always stepping up. And Whitewater had an opportunity. Carver gets a big turnover. And remember, this Whitewater team is a very good 3A team that was in the same region with LaGrange, Truth County last season. So a big win for Carver.
Big, huge win for Carver. And their defense made stops, Richard. Their defense led them last year. That was by far the best unit on the field. But Jacoby Caslin, that guy is electric. We got a lot of stars in the Tri-City area that are putting everyone in the state on notice. And cannot wait to get them on Georgia Alabama Sports Live. And number 1 team, they didn't face off anyone. They come this week taking on
Pinson Valley.
Pinson Valley next week. And by the way, Pinson Valley was where Patrick Nix, the coach now, was for many years and won 2 state championships there with Bo Nix before he came to Central. And then they take on Lutheran North, and then they got IMG Academy. So this starts a gauntlet of a schedule for Central, but they're going to stay number 1 until they lose, until they show me otherwise. They're one of the top teams in the country, top teams in the state of Alabama, and they're our number 1 team on the Georgia-Alabama Sports Live ratings poll.
Yeah, it was a great poll. I know that it's just week 1. I mean, we did get some clarity. I mean, but some of the teams in Alabama are going to be facing off this week coming up, and so we'll kind of just get just a feel. And some of these teams that are not in our rankings might surprise us this week. So we might have to consider putting them into our rankings.
And that's why we do what we do. Well, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we are presented by Pepsi, obviously, and Glenn Smith Chevrolet and GMC. We appreciate all the support. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll preview some of the games coming up this week. We're going to end the Georgia-Alabama Sports Live show.
Now at Glenn Smith GMC in Opelika, the full-size GMC Sierra 4x4 crew cabs discounted up to a giant $15,000 off. GMC Canyons with plenty of power and excellent towing ability, up to $5,000 off. And the roomy and enjoyable compact SUV, the popular GMC Terrains, up to $6,750 off.
Choose from over 500 new and used vehicles on the lot or on the way to Glenn Smith and Opelika. Get ready to smile.
Welcome back. We are here at the Georgia-Alabama Sports Live Studios, presented by Glenn Smith Chevrolet and GMC and Pepsi triple header. Chris, throw it up. Look where we're at. Heritage Bowl, one of the biggest games of the year. And I'm going to have DJ Jones. He's going to be a part of our high school game day coverage. Richard, you'll be there for that. And then he'll be on the call with me live from Memorial Stadium. Cannot wait. Game day at an earlier time, though, this week. 5 o'clock is when it's going to be started. We're going to be live from the tailgate areas at Memorial Stadium. We're going to have on Scarver and Spencer alumni. We're going to have on special guests. DJ's going to make picks. And then we're going to be on the call at 7 o'clock at Memorial Stadium. Richard will be across the river after he leaves game day at 8 p.m. on the call with Mike Peacock as Valley takes on Glenwood. Glenwood's first game in the AHSAA, and they take on a school that's about 45 minutes out. That game will be presented by Zaxby's. For all your tailgating needs, give Judson Humphreys our home. Zaxby's, Phoenix City, Alabama, location of Highway 280. We enjoy what they do for us, and promise you we're going to be out there shooting some promos and showing you how much love they've been showing us here, and we appreciate Judson Humphreys. You'll be on the call for that one, Richard. That should be a fantastic game.
Oh, I cannot wait for Glenwood making their AHSAA debut. And just looking at the landscape of Glenwood, they don't play like a average private school team. They dress about 55 to 60 players, and so they can hold their own against these public schools. Just that matchup with a Valley team that went to the playoffs last year for the first time since 2019, but they do lose their 3-year starter at quarterback, Cam Dooley. I mean, he was dynamic. He was electric last year. And also Jay Harper, one of the top corners in Alabama. He's gone on to graduate. But Valley is going to be loaded. They have just a great fan base, and they're going to travel down to the swamp. But I think that Glenwood is going to be ready. Coach Ryan Nelson is going to have his team ready. I mean, it really starts with whoever their quarterback's going to be, but Carter Judah led the team in rushing last year. He was a sophomore. I mean, you got Mason McCrane. I mean, he's your security blanket.
You got Levi Pender going to be the quarterback.
Levi
Tyler
Pender.
Sykes. I mean, and then they added some new transfers. New
transfers for Opelika and Smith Station. They got some transfers coming over that I can't wait. I mean, I know the fans are excited as well.
Yeah, and I am too, Richard. It should be a great game. I'm interested in what Levi Pender is able to do now as a full off season to prepare for this upcoming year. Coach Nelson feels like that this team offensively can maybe be even a little bit better than last year, and they put up a bunch of numbers last year. And defensively, Josh McConnell thinks that this may be the most talented defense he's had, and again had a lot of talent last year and guys going D1. So Glenwood and Valley, that will be at 8 o'clock at the Swamp. Cannot wait to see how that one's going to turn out. We'll talk with Coach Nelson on Monday to be able to preview that game a little bit more on game day. But Really don't know much about Valley other than they replaced a lot from last year's team. It was decent, and then who also beat Russell County.
Yes.
Had obviously some basketball players. You remember that basketball run they were on. So they replaced a lot. So I'm leaning towards Glenwood. I'm not going to make my pick yet, but I think the Gators, having Pender, who did have experience last year, it's not just a fresh face, plus all the other skill set, talent, and then the offensive line being big and physical. I like Coach Nelson's team a lot. And I go back to Carver Spencer. This is a Heritage Bowl that a rival of all rivals. Spencer has not won in 10 years, though, Richard. Been a long time. But Coach Kegler, again, feels like this year could be the year for his team. They didn't play last week where Carver did get some of that. So I know, knocking that rust off, I know if you're Coach Kegler, you don't like the fact that you didn't play a game, even though you did get the win. But Carver, with Matthew Mungden, I think they're going to slowly progress and open the playbook up for him. I think that this rival last year was 21-0 before everything that happened. I'm not even going to dignify those that made that incident happen last year, but I'm looking forward to it being back. I'm looking forward to this rival between two prestigious schools. I'm looking forward to seeing all the alumni. It is a proud moment for the city of Columbus, and I think these two schools, they don't like each other, obviously. It always gets great viewership for us, and new quarterback for Spencer, who didn't get experience last week. That's probably one of the biggest question marks going into this game, Richard.
Yeah, Spencer has to replace a 3-year starter in Gary Gaither.
All-state starter, too, Richard.
Who led it 2 years ago. He led the entire 4A in passing yards.
Unreal.
So Spencer does have a lot of players, that have that experience, the two-time region champions, and, Coach Kegler has built a program. Going up against Carter, we know about the tradition. It's the Heritage Bowl. Rightfully so, it's back at A.J. McClung. It never should have left, but, they had the light situation. They were going to move it to Kinnett. Now it's back at A.J. McClung. I think while we're setting up for high school game day, they're going to be tailgating in the parking lot probably at 2 in the afternoon.
Right.
We know that, there's a lot of Spencer and Carver alumni that are going to be coming here because it is an event. And we expect just the whole community to just be at A.J. McClung and just cherish this moment, because this is a historic moment. It's the Heritage Bowl. It's Heritage Bowl week. You got great NFL players like Otis Sistrunk, and you have Monk Johnson for Spencer. For Carver, you got DJ Jones. You got Isaiah Crowell. You have Jarvis Jones. That there's a lot of pride that comes to wearing, the Carver uniform and the Spencer uniform as well.
Elijah Fudge is one of those that could be playing quarterback going into this year, but we don't know yet. Those are some of the guys that got experience during the scrimmage game, and then against Harris County when we did the spring game.
Yeah, we did the spring game, and so we saw some of the the players for Spencer.
But on the flip side, Carver, the amount of talent they have on their roster. And remember, Tony Montgomery, who didn't play football last year, playing football back again this year, is on special teams, playing defense. I like Tony Montgomery. You're talking about an incredible athlete. He lays a boom. That defense may be the best defense in our area. And we got some really good defenses.
No question.
But Matthew Mungden made the necessary plays against Whitewater. And I'm wondering now if Coach Pierre Coffey and his offensive staff are going to start opening up the playbook a little bit more, especially against a rival in Spencer. Cannot wait to see that one. 7 o'clock live from Memorial Stadium, Carver and Spencer Heritage Bowl. And the last of our triple header, Troup County, Harris County. So Harris County has not beat Troup County in some time. They only lost during the regular season last year for Harris County was to Troup County. Troup County did whoop up on Villa Rica. They do replace Teo Todd, but they got a quarterback that got minutes last year.
Logan Sinkfield.
And because of the injury to Todd, now has a year of experience underneath his belt. Troup County, Harris County. I think Harris County is going to have to be better offensively in this one, Richard. Okay, because I feel like Troup County is a little bit different of a juggernaut offensively than Manchester was. A little bit different animal that they're going to have to deal with. I don't think they're going to be able to hold Troup County to 8 points. But if they hold them to 20, can their offense give them 24 and win a 24-21 game? If it gets in the 30s, same thing I said last year, I don't think Harris County wants to get in that type of track meet with Troup County. And then being at home, too, all the momentum they've had. They didn't lose one home game last year. Okay, they haven't lost a home game in 2 years. They're back at I can't think of the name of the field now.
Danny Durham Field.
Danny Durham Field. I was going to say Diamond Field. That's wrong school. That's Shelley. But Durham Field. Rick Beach. He thinks this is the year that Harris County takes down Troup County.
Finally.
Another rivalry game, 7:30. Rick Beach will be on the call. Chris Gates will be up there on Georgia Alabama Sports Live. I'm still pushing towards the Tigers of Troup County. But if Harris County can make it ugly, and defensively, D-Rock Brooks can call one of the best games. He called a great one last week, but again, Troup County's a different animal. I'm interested in seeing how this week of practice goes for those teams.
Well, 2 years ago, the last time Troup County was at Harris County, they won that game 33-3. That was Tommy Watson's first year as head coach. I've had the privilege of having Coach Tanner Glisson on my podcast a couple of times, and Coach Tanner Glisson is one of the top coaches in this area. I mean, you would think that Troup County, a team 2 years ago that went to the semifinals, lost to Benedictine. Last year, they lose Teo Todd. I think if they would have had Teo Todd, I think they would have won the state championship.
Yeah.
But I think that was how devastating that was for Teo Todd to be injured. Logan Sinkfield came in relief, and they still got to the second round of the playoffs. So Troup County has been absolutely loaded. They send players to the NFL. I mean, you got guys like Jamari Thrash, who's playing for the Cleveland Browns right now. I mean, it's Troup County, Kobe Hudson. I mean, you have some players that Troup County has had. I mean, I think that this is another great rivalry because they are border counties. So you got a lot of people who live in that West Point area.
And by the way, Harris County has not beat Troup County since 2020, Richard. In 2021 was the closest game. It was 28-21, but the last two, 33-0 in 2022, as you may mention, and then 2023, it was 31-7. So they have outscored Harris County 64-7 in the last two matchups. You know that's firing up Harris County. Trotter Teasley, again, didn't make any mistakes and was a great game manager, and that's what's asked from a Tommy Watson quarterback in his system. But I like Troup County a lot, Richard. In these last 2 years, making the Final Four, making a deep run in the quarterfinals last year. And again, Harris County has not won since they beat Troup County at home back in 2020.
And that rushing attack for Troup County, Garrison Edwards had 159 yards against Villa Rica. Javarius Warner had 92 yards. I mean, they've got just this incredible rushing attack. And Troup County, that was a statement win. On the road against Villa Rica, you win 39-6. Villa Rica fans were not expecting it. They pretty much got beat at home. And Troup County is when you think of Troup County, you don't think of a team that rebuilds. They reload.
Yeah, and they got a talented roster for sure, Richard. And we're going to hit on some of the other games just quickly. Thursday, there's two Thursday night games. Washington at Hardaway. Again, I think that's a winnable game for Hardaway.
Right.
We had that on. If they're going to get 4 wins this year, that's one of the wins I thought they would get. And then shout out to Jonathan Hoppy. One of his final things he's going to be doing is WTVM has their state line showdown, and they are going to do Shaw at Smith Station.
Incredible.
So Shaw and Smith Station are going to be on Thursday. Shaw trying to get a big win after losing to Northside. Smith Station trying to get off to a good start. I think this is a must win for both of them for confidence-wise as they have more tough games coming up here on the schedule. Shaw doesn't want to start 0-2. And Smith Station, this is probably one of the smaller schools that you're going to face all year, being a 7A school in Alabama. So how do you feel like those two games could face off real quick, Richard?
Well, Smith Station's a 7A school, and the last time they played a team from Georgia, it was 2 years ago. They played LaGrange, and it was a very competitive game, and LaGrange got some breaks. 3 years ago, Smith Station played Columbus, and they beat them 50-0. So you see, like, it's a 7A school that has to play Central. They have to play Auburn. They have to play Opelika. They do have talent, but I do think that what Coach Johnny Gardner is doing in his second year, you mentioned how Shaw was competitive against Northside. I think this game could go either way. I'm excited. It's going to be televised on a Thursday. It's going to be on WTVM on Thursday because WTVM does the Falcons preseason on Friday.
And then also we got 3 games on Georgia Alabama Sports Live. So why not have a game on Thursday
Why not?
And then go to the triple header for Georgia Alabama Sports Live on Friday? We talked about our triple header Brookstone hosts Valwood, a team that played in the state championship last year. I was on the call when they upset John Milledge, who had won 60 games in a row, 5 straight state championships. They not just beat John Milledge, they took care of business. Now, they do replace a lot of talent, but Brookstone, Rance Gillespie, if they can get a win at Tatnall week 1 and then Valwood at home, it's going to be hard-pressed for me not to think they're going to be number 1 in the GIAA. And then the rival, Pacelli, goes to the place that Brookstone was just at Tatnall Square. Pacelli needs this win. They need to go to Tatnall. They need to get a win. They need to go back to 500. Talking with Coach Beck and Coach Jones, they think they're going to fix the mistakes they made last week, and they'll get a big win against Tatnall Square. And Calvary at Stratford, it's going to be a tough task for Coach Brunson because they came to Pacelli and took care of business, won that 27-13. And Stratford is ranked, I think, number 2 or number 3 in the GIAA right now of all classifications. It's going to be a tough one for Calvary. I don't know if they'll be able to go there and get that win. I really want them to get the win against Terrell because Stratford, up in the air. I mean, they could pull off an upset. Who knows? But I think it's tough going to Macon. Any thoughts on those 3 games between Calvary, Pacelli, and Brookstone?
Well, we know how competitive the GIAA is, and all these games. I mean, you go into the GIAA level of play. This is going to be a big test for Calvary to see if they belong with these GIAA schools. I mean, you played a public school in week 1. Now you turn around and you play GIAA schools. We know about the history of Stratford Academy down in Macon. They won the state. They've won multiple state championships in other sports, but they just have an incredible program, great facilities, and I'm looking forward to it.
I am too, Richard. And then we have some other games going on around the area that include Jordan at Bremen. Kendrick's going to Best. Let's see if they can start 2-0. Columbus at Greenville, and then Carroll at Russell County. Dylan Griggs would love nothing more than to start undefeated. And then, of course, Pinson Valley and Central. That's going to be a juggernaut game. Can't wait to keep up and see what happened in that one, Richard.
Yeah, I cannot wait. Coach Patrick Nix takes on his former team.
And seeing Andrew Alford, the guy I think is probably going to be All-State Quarterback of the Year. I don't care about the Thompson. I mean, Thompson kid's good. Give me the Central, Andrew Alford.
Yeah, Central has to be the favorites in 7A. I know that Thompson won 4 state championships before Central dethroned them last year. But, yeah, that Trent Seaburn, Andrew Alford, he is just lighting up the scoreboard. I mean, I think he could throw for 50 touchdowns this year. I mean, he is just an incredible talent. And also, Central has got a new assistant coach, Damian, the Nighthawk Daniels.
Well, can't wait to see Damian, who's doing great things. By the way, happy birthday to the Columbus Lions head coach, just turned 40, so congratulations.
That was a pretty good segue.
Yeah, congratulations to him. Well, we want to say thank you again for support we had this past Friday. Looking forward to what we got coming up this Friday. Got a week full of softball, volleyball, and, of course, football on Friday. It's the Georgia Alabama Sports Live Show presented by Pepsi and Glenn Smith Chevrolet and GMC. Coaches shows. We got a bunch of stuff coming up. Check out the schedule on Georgia Alabama Sports Live Facebook page. Like us there. Subscribe to YouTube, and we'll see you later on this week. Good night, everyone.